Welcome to 5 unique strategy games. The first one we're going to talk about is going to be Armor Brigade, set in a hypothetical World War III in a Cold War gone hot scenario. Armor Brigade is a tactical real-time war game where it focuses on realism and playability. The game draws information from cult classics such as Close Combat, Steel Panthers, and Flashpoint campaigns Red Storm. But what makes it unique and why should you check it out? Well, let's just dive right on into that. Don't be fooled by these graphics. One of the more unique things that Armor Brigade does is how it simulates battles on a 2D map that take place on a 3D battlefield. So you can toggle between 2D and 3D and just dive into the isometric view and watch your units launch massive assaults on hillsides and deep ravines, massive cityscapes, or even across flat plains. All of it is simulated on a 3D map, and it's really fun to look at. It's also awesome to check out that 3D isometric view and kind of see how the battle unfolds on that scale. One of the more unique features that's often overlooked, especially by larger war games or larger strategy games, is how you can have your own unique player character on the battlefield. That's right, you can put your own commander on the battlefield, have him in the back lines, and kind of keep him alive while the battle progresses. It adds a unique and kind of stressful dynamic to the battles. And it's really fun to see. It's really fun to kind of protect that character or even use him to spot and scout on the front lines. It's one of the more unique features, and I would like to see it implemented in other strategy games. If you know of other strategy games that have this feature, please let me know because the only one I know of is Armor Brigade, and I really kind of enjoyed that mechanic, especially when creating my own scenarios, because it kind of puts this dire feeling in your chest when an assault fails or a defense fails, and you kind of need to defend that character or defend that position. Because if you lose that battle or if you lose that character, then your game's over and you just need to start over. And it's absolutely fun to play like that. Armor Brigade also approaches combat in a unique way. Think of controlling platoons or like large squads. So instead of having one tank to control, you're going to be controlling at least four, and they're going to move as a unit. However, if you want to break down and micro it a bit more, you can split those tanks up to move as individual units. However, the command delay will be increased quite substantially. So while you can set these units up to set up flanks, as long as they're relatively like in a close knit area, you can kind of set them up to set up flanks or defensive positions. It's a fun mechanic. It's super interesting, and I like the idea of having like a platoon move as once, and then you can split them up and then reorganize them later on. Moving into standard operating procedures is kind of fun as well. Armor Brigade approaches it in a relatively unique way. However, this mechanic isn't super unique to Armor Brigade, though. You can set up units to smoke, you can set up engagement distances, you can set up fun little formations. So you can have left echelons, right echelons, diamond formations. And overall, it really directs that firepower in specific directions, or it kind of guards your flanks. It's not super unique, but it is super fun to use and kind of makes the game a bit more intense and more fun feeling and a bit more of a simulation. Whether you set your units to engage hard targets at specific ranges or hard targets at specific ranges, if they come into contact, do they drop their personnel or do they keep them on the battle or do they keep them on the vehicle? The sequel for Armor Brigade is launching this year. However, you should pick up Armor Brigade 1, especially when it's on sale. It usually retails for around $20. The game's great, the simulation's great, the combat modeling is fantastic. It approaches situations in a unique way. And overall, I think you're going to have a good time with this game and this series. Welcome to Gunner Heat PC, a lightweight armored combat simulator focused on authenticity, realism, fun, and accessibility. Now, I put this game on the list for one reason and one reason only because it is a light simulator, and getting players into the strategy genre can be a quite a daunting task right now. So I'm going to explain to you why you should pick this game up, why it's kind of a light strategy game, and why it's a ton of fun to play because it does approach things in kind of a unique way, and it makes them a lot more accessible, a lot more fun, and it doesn't really go into the in depth into making things extremely realistic or extremely like button clicky. So you're not just like managing a cockpit or a tank commander's position. It's a lot of fun. So let's just check it out. So as Gunner Heat PC's grown and evolved, it's added a lot of these light strategy mechanics, as I'll call them. Things like on-map artillery, on-map airstrikes. You have multiple platoons to control, so you're moving several units of tanks on the battlefield, and you really need to think forward about your decision-making practice or your decisions you're going to make. So while it's not a strategic scale, it's more of a tactical battle simulator. You're still thinking about strategy at the end of the day. So you'll be moving your platoons in specific directions. You'll set different standard operating procedures. You're just not going to have like massive companies to control, or it's just not this top down view. However, it's going to get new players into the genre because they'll discover something they like about it. It may not be like the armored combat, but they like the ability to move large formations on the battlefield. They like the view, the graphics, they look absolutely fantastic. They enjoy calling on call artillery. So while it at its core it is a tank simulator or like a lightweight tank simulator, it can bridge that gap into more serious strategy games. And I do think we need that at this moment in time because the interest in strategy games continues to fall. And if it keeps falling, then we're just going to enter this drought and there won't be a lot of strategy games for us to play. So while it is a lightweight tank simulator, there's a lot of strategy involved in this game. And as it grows, that strategy is going to grow. And that's going to introduce new players to new mechanics. They're going to see this is a Cold War Gone Hot game, and they're going to look for other Cold War Gone Hot strategy games. So, should you buy Gunner Heat PC? I believe I received this game for free. However, I would buy it in its current state. And the development continues to just grow and proceed. And they just keep adding a ton of new features and really expanding the gameplay and the authenticity and fun with it. Everything looks beautiful. The combat's really well modeled. The tanks are modeled. And it's just a good time. And it's a good, quick pick up and play game. Welcome to Into the Breach, currently on sale for $7.49 USD. So let's define what Into the Breach is. Control powerful mechanized units from the future to defeat an alien threat. Each attempt to save the world presents a new randomly generated challenge in this turn-based strategy game. And this game is a ton of fun. I really enjoyed the mechanics around it. As you'll see in this video, I'm calling artillery strikes onto empty squares just to knock units into the water. And that's probably an absolute basic mechanic, but it's so much fun to execute and set these units up to absolutely just destroy them. It is a ton of fun. So let's dive into what makes it unique, what makes it fun. Into the Breach is such an accessible, fun, and unique looking strategy game. I really love the art style. I like the idea behind it. It has a very roguelike feel, and there's not a lot of roguelike strategy games on the market. Well, actually, that's probably completely false. They're like blowing up. But one thing that's it embraces failure, and a lot of strategy and a lot of simulation games do not embrace failure. And I think that's something that makes it a bit more unique than the other strategy games on this list. Embracing failure, failure is not an option. So when you're defeated, you're going to send help back through to help save another timeline. And that's a lot of fun. So as you play the game, you get more access to units. You can actually just go back, you can just start over, and it creates this really intense replayable feeling, and it really is a lot of fun. It's from the makers who made Faster Than Light or FTL. I never played that game, but I'm looking for like the next iteration in the series, and I really love the art style. And actually, this pixelated art style, while popular in the more popular strategy games, it's going to be hard to find. Creating like an impending doom feeling or that like need to replay the game over and over again is really challenging and is a really unique feature, especially when a strategy game comes out, because oftentimes you'll just play through the 8 hour story or the campaign missions and then you'll just set it to the side. These replayable games are challenging to find. And I'm glad we can get one for like such a cheap price point, especially when it's on sale for like $7.49. It's from like a reputable developer. They've developed good games before like this in the past, and they've actually like expanded it a little bit. There's even an unfair mode, which makes it more challenging and a just it's going to test your strategies at the end of the day. I think you should pick it up. It's a lot of fun. Flashpoint Campaign's Southern Storm is a unique grand tactical war game set at the height of the Cold War. You know what I just realized? There are 4 Cold War games on this list. So let's just dive into what makes Flashpoint Campaigns unique. Now, while Flashpoint Campaigns is or looks like a hex encounter based game, that's not how the combat simulation works. That's not how the mechanics work. It's just a visual representation of what goes on the battlefield. So let's really dive into the meat and potatoes of this game and really discuss the combat simulation and how it works. So each engagement's going to be unique. If you call in artillery on, say, a 500-meter hex, it's going to simulate where those artillery shells land within that hex. And then if there's a unit there, it's going to either damage it, do a top attack, or cause shrapnel damage to that unit. This is the same with like BMPs, M1 Abrams, or T-72s. It's going to model those units on that hex, and then it's going to conduct a simulation or an algorithm where unit rounds are going to be fired into that hex, and if there's a unit within that position within the hex, it will be destroyed, it will be engaged, it'll hit the front armor, the side armor, the top armor, and it really has a unique combat simulation model. And that's one of the more unique things about Flashpoint campaigns that's often overlooked, especially when it just looks like a Hexen-based countered war game. So at the end of the day, it is real in-depth combat simulator war game. It's not as accessible as some of the other ones, although a lot of things were streamlined. So the standard operating procedure is one of the more unique features, especially with how in-depth and the unique way they approach it is super fun to use. You can have your tanks move through minefield. You can say take casualties, take no casualties, step on a landmine, and just keep moving forward. It is really interesting. It's really easy to use, and they've really streamlined a lot of these mechanics. There's recon units, artillery warfare, realistic weather, lines of sight, terrain, and electronic warfare. There's even the human factors such as morale, training, and readiness. That's not to mention the commander on the battlefield who sins and can delay orders. It's really a fun war game. It's all encompassing. It approaches the Cold War in a different way, and it's a lot of fun to play. And you can often get it on sale a lot. And I would highly suggest picking it up on sale. One thing is I'd like to talk about is how artillery works. So there's rocket artillery, there's airstrikes, and then there's just like gas, nuclear weapons, chemical, biological, all kinds of weapon systems are used within this war game. So really, with all of those like chemical weapons, the artillery systems, the airstrikes, the recon forces, it's definitely a game you should pick up, especially if you're looking for a more in-depth, realistic combat simulator or war game, because you're going to find something to like here. You're going to find some fun, and it's going to be a lot of fun to play. Even though it looks like a hex-based game, it doesn't function or play like a hex-based game. Welcome to Regiments, our fourth Cold War game on this list. It is a real-time tactics game set in Germany during a Cold War gone hot scenario. So what makes this game unique? Well, I'm really going to dive into that, but I want to talk about the new DLC that's coming out for it first. So let's just dive into that real quick. So there are a lot of unique features within Regiments, but they're adding a ton more. They're adding air assaults in this upcoming DLC. So the units will function as two separate platoons. You'll be able to call in units on the battlefield. They'll ride in Hueys or different helicopters, different aerial platforms, and they'll arrive on the battlefield and function as an infantry unit at this time. So they'll be called the air assaults. They'll have a much higher stealth rating. They can dig in faster, and they can't be targeted by anti-tank weapons. Next, we have combat air patrols. I haven't really seen this in a lot of war games. However, it is simulated in Flashpoint Campaign Southern Storm. But let's dive into combat air controls. It's a new tactical aid option. So the developer's really expanding on their TAC aids, which is super interesting. And it's the first time they're really diving into this tactical aid expansion. The Combat Air Patrol sounds absolutely fun to use. Several aircraft are going to be armed with short range anti air missiles. They're going to keep watch over a designated area for a period of time. They'll stay off map until the moment they detect an aerial threat, so helicopters, other aircraft in the patrol zone, at which point fighters will descend and engage the units in several passes until they get mauled by anti-air defenses. So remember, we're gonna have that layered air defense. You'll have your anti-air on the ground, you'll have your combat air patrol, and then you'll just have this layered air defense, and it'll be super unique, super fun to use. It's awesome, and I'm really excited to check that out as well. Now we're going to add towed equipment. So things like mortars you'll be pulling behind your M113s or different types of vehicles. So you'll need to tow these onto the battlefield, set them up, and move them around. You'll also have radar vehicles. So the anti-air level or anti-air is kind of expanding a little bit. You'll be able to put like these SAM systems on the battlefield, except they won't have their own radar system. So you'll have to couple it with a radar system as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to create a more dynamic experience, and it kind of makes me wonder about PvP if it should be added, because the game's really expanding and it's adding a lot of cool features. A lot of features that are going to make it fun to use and fun to play. So at the end of the day, Regiments has a ton of new features coming. It also has a lot of things that make it unique, such as the designing your regiment as you play the game. So you'll get these new companies that you can attach to your current company and make and expand your force and really design it to play a specific way. So if you want to focus more on artillery, you can add several artillery companies. Or if you're in a high intensity tank battle, you can add anti-tank teams. You can add helicopters with tons of ATGMs. You can even focus on anti-air if you're just getting swarmed by helicopters. It's really expanding, and the game is a lot of fun and has so many features that a lot of people don't talk about. Now, Should you buy it? That's always the major question. Regiments is a fantastic game to pick up on sale. You're going to get so much content with it. It's been updated several times. Several free DLCs have released for it. And if you're really looking to get into an accessible war game in a Cold War gone hot scenario, then don't look any further than Regiments. And it's different enough from several other Cold War games that it warrants owning Regiments as well as the other Cold War games on this list. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video, guys. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing today, like, comment, subscribe. I said it earlier, but share the video as well. YouTube really loves it when you share the video. It brings new viewers into the channel, and it just allows our content and information to get spread. So share the video. Let me know what you think of this list. Let me know what you think of war games or strategy games in general.